All right, here we're factoring by greatest common factor. When you think about your factors of 6, you could multiply 1 times 6 and get 6, or 2 times 3. When you think about your factors of 24, you do 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, or 4 times 6. So you're looking for the biggest number that's in each list, the biggest one that they have in common, and so you see the 6. So we're going to divide the 6 out of this. They don't have any variables in common, so we'll do 6x divided by 6, and that'll leave you with just x. And then you'll do positive 24 divided by 6, and that leaves you with 4. Now to check this, we'll distribute 6 times x, 6x. 6 times 4 is 24. So we get back to the starting point, so it checked. We can be fairly confident that we have the right factoring. When you look at factors of 10, you've got 1 and 10, 2 and 5. And in factors of 40, you also see 10. 4 times 10 is 40. So 10 is your greatest common factor. We'll divide each term by 10. 10x divided by 10 is x. Negative 40 divided by 10 is negative 4. You can check it by distributing. Greatest common factor of 4 and 28 is 4. And then we see this x in each term. We take the lower the exponents. So 4x to the first power is our greatest common factor. Now we're thinking through 4x squared divided by 4x. Well, 4 divided by 4 is 1. X squared divided by x is x to the first power, or just x. And then negative 28x divided by 4x gives us negative 7. Again, you can check to make sure that these are at least factors by distributing. Same idea here on number 4. 4 is a common factor. Both of them divide by 4, and we also have an a. So think through 4ax divided by 4a. Both the 4's and the a's cancel, and so we're left with x. And then negative 20a divided by 4a gives us negative 5. You can check by distributing. Any number that ends in 0 is divisible by 10. So 10 is a factor of each of these. Since we have a coefficient of 10, then we know that that's our greatest common factor, at least for the number part. And then for the variables, we have an x in each term. We don't have a y in every single term. We don't have it in the third term, so we can't divide the y out, or factor the y out. So we'll take 10x squared y squared divided by 10x. 10 divided by 10 is 1. X squared divided by x is x to the first power. And then you see y squared as well. Next term, negative 30xy. Divide that by 10x. And we get negative 3y. And then final term, 50x. Divide that by 10x, and we get positive 5. You can check it by distributing. All right, here we're going to try to factor by grouping. You should technically look for greatest common factor first. On number 6, the greatest common factor is 1. Now we're going to group the first two together and factor it out. So we see an x in common. So we'll divide each term by x. X squared divided by x is x. 3x divided by x is 3. And then looking at the last two terms, the greatest common factor is 2. Factor those out. 2x divided by 2 is x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So notice that this x plus 3 is in common. We can factor that out, and we're left with x plus 2. As I said on the last one, you should look for a greatest common factor first. On this one, any number that ends in 5 or 0 is divisible by 5, so we can start by factoring out a 5 from everything. So 20x squared divided by 5 is 4x squared. 15x divided by 5 is 3x. 40x divided by 5 is 8x. And then 30 divided by 5 is 6. Now we'll factor by grouping. We'll group the first two together and the last two together. Greatest common factor of the first two terms is x. We're left with 4x plus 3 when we divide them each by x. And then for the last two terms, we have a common factor of 2. And we're left with 4x plus 3. Now notice that the 4x plus 3 is in common, this and this. So we can factor the 4x plus 3 out, and we're left with x plus 2. To check this one, you could distribute your 5, and then you could distribute twice. Or you can multiply your two binomials together and then distribute 5. Greatest common factor of the whole thing here on 8 is 1, so we won't bother factoring that out. Then we'll factor by grouping. 2x is the greatest common factor between 10 and 8. 10x squared divided by 2x is 5x. Negative 8x divided by 2x is negative 4. Now we need what's in parentheses to match up, so if we factor out a positive 1, we're left with negative 5x plus 4. So notice that our signs are not matching up correctly. So if the only thing that's wrong is the signs, then what we can do is factor out a negative 1. Negative 5x divided by negative 1 is positive 5x. 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. And so the 5x minus 4 is in common. We're left with 2x minus 1. All right, greatest common factor of all four terms is 1. So we'll look factor by grouping. Greatest common factor of the first two terms is 7x. We're left with x minus 2 when we divide that. And then for the last two terms, if we divide out 6, we're left with negative x plus 2. So the only thing that's wrong is our signs. So instead of factoring out a positive 6, we're going to factor out a negative 6. And we're left with positive x minus 2. 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. So the x minus 2 is in common. We're left with 7x minus 6. Four terms. Greatest common factor of the whole thing is 1. So it's factored by grouping. We have an x in common. We're left with 3x minus 5. For the last two terms, we have 2 in common. Divide them by 2, we get 3x minus 5. Notice that the binomial inside of parentheses is a match. So we can factor out the 3x minus 5, and we're left with x plus 2. The only way you can have a product that equals 0 is if one of the things equals 0. So we've got x times this other thing, x plus 4, and that's equal to 0. So either x has to equal 0, or x plus 4 has to equal 0. So x equals 0, that's already solved. Let's subtract 4 from each side. And we get x equal to -4 as our other solution. So our answer here is x equals 0 or x equals -4. 12, we've got a product equal to 0, so set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So 2x plus 10 could equal 0, or x minus 8 could equal 0. Solve each of these. To get rid of plus 10, we'll subtract 10. So we have 2x equals -10. To get rid of multiplying by 2, we'll divide both sides by 2. And so we have x equal to -5 as one of our solutions. To get rid of -8, we'll add 8 to each side, and so we get x equal to 8 as our other solution. So two solutions, either -5 or 8. This one, we don't have it in factored form. We don't have a product equal to 0. So let's factor it out. Greatest common factor between 3 and 6 is 3. For the variables, the lower the exponents is 1. So 3x is our common factor. 3x squared divided by 3x is x. 6x divided by 3x is 2. We have a product equal to 0. So set each factor equal to 0 and solve. This produces two one-step equations. To get rid of multiplying by 3, divide by 3. And so x equals 3 is a solution. To get rid of plus 2, subtract 2. And x equal to -2 is also a solution. Here we want to get the variables on one side. Get everything on one side and factor. So we have x squared plus 7x equals 0. Factor out the x. X squared divided by x is x. 7x divided by x is 7. We have a product equal to 0, so set each factor equal to 0 and solve. We already have x equal to 0, and then the other one, subtract 7. And so we have two solutions, either x equals 0 or x equals -7. Hope you've enjoyed this video. You can check out more on the website.